Bowser's Inside Story is the third installment of the Mario and Luigi RPGs on the DS that takes everything from the previous games and dials it all up to 11. Much like the title implies, the game takes place inside Bowser after he's tricked into eating a mushroom which sees the brothers and Peach being sucked into his body, and from there the adventure splits into two parallel journeys where Mario and Luigi have to traverse the bizarre innards of Bowser, with the other given control of Bowser himself as he tries to take back his castle. This sets the stage for some rather hilarious situations, and that sense of humor permeates throughout nearly every aspect of the experience. Now the gameplay is split up into equal parts of exploring and battles that give you a wealth of options to deal with the many different enemies you'll find inside Bowser. What makes the system so engaging is that most of your abilities don't see you just having to simply hit a button to use them, but instead turn into minigames within themselves, such as time-based attacks that see you having to hit A for Mario or B for Luigi to chain your hammer swings together, or some that even take advantage of the touch capabilities of the DS that see you having to draw paths to hit the enemy. Now taking control of Bowser is an entirely different beast altogether, where he relies on brute force instead, and punches, breathes fire and summons Goombas to fight alongside him. When it comes down to it, Inside Story feels like a celebration of what makes the Mario RPG so special, and whether you're bouncing through Bowser's stomach or fighting it out as the Koopa King himself, it's a game with plenty of personality and a testament to Alpha Dream's creative talent. Dragon Quest V is a remake of a Super Nintendo game that released way back in '92, and as you would guess, this version comes along with a whole range of enhancements, from polished visuals to quality of life improvements, all the while preserving the essence of the original. Like many Dragon Quest games, the heart of the adventure is the story, and the one told here is by far one of the best to ever come out of the series. You play as a nameless hero as you watch your life unfold from your birth right up to adulthood, and travel with your father, who set you on a path that's tied to a mysterious prophecy. Watching your character grow from an inquisitive child to a battle-hardened warrior with his own children is something that ends up being quite emotional, but what really cements it as one of the must-have RPGs for the DS is the gameplay. If you're at all familiar with the classic Dragon Quest games, then you'll know exactly what to expect, with the game giving you a vibrant world to explore, filled with quirky NPCs that help you along the way, and monsters that try nothing but to stop you dead in your tracks. Now each battle sees you and your party taking advantage of a wide range of skills, as well as giving you an extra space for another character taking the count from 3 to 4, increasing the overall amount of tactics you can employ during each fight. The real star though is the recruitment system that lets you befriend defeated enemies, and with over 70 of them to collect, each with their own unique abilities, there's a lot to experiment with beyond the human cast. Now if there was one downside, it would likely be the translation, which is a bit off when compared to the original, but it's nothing that takes away from the game as a whole. So if you never got around to playing it, the DS version is a great way to experience this timeless classic. Mega Man Star Force Red Joker is a pretty unique RPG that combines both turn-based mechanics with real-time aspects that make its battle system a real highlight. It all focuses around the use of cards, or chips as they're known in the game, that you get to choose from at the beginning of each of your turns, and with over 300 of them being available to collect, from standard series staples like the hand cannon to devastating abilities like the hyper tackle, you've got a ton of options to take advantage of. And that's not even mentioning the ones that will improve your chances by offering different buffs or the option to heal up. Once you've selected your cards, you can then end your turn, and then this is where you've got to move around the grid in order to dodge any incoming attacks and unleash combos to defeat the enemy. It's a really cool setup that combines the best of both worlds, but what helps shake it up even further is the concept of noise, a type of energy that proliferates throughout the game's world, which manages to inject a dynamic layer of strategy to each fight. It gives the player the option to transform Mega Man into over 100 different forms, and as it builds up during an encounter, all the way from 50 to 200%, you can trigger it for different effects. For example, you've got some that boost your attack power and enhance the effects of certain cards, to those that improve your HP or speed, giving you an extra edge in battle that can really help out during some of the more challenging moments. For those of you looking for an RPG that offers a lot when it comes to combat, Star Force Red Joker is a solid option, as the amount of strategy within its unique card-based system is simply unparalleled. Pokemon has always been one of the main reasons to own one of Nintendo's handhelds, and the DS was no exception, with plenty of different entries in the series, but Black and White 2 stands as the best of the bunch. It's essentially an improved version of the first game, with many new features and an entirely new story. Unlike many before it sees you taking on the role of a new Pokemon trainer who has recently moved to a new town. From there, you choose your first Pokemon and are let loose to capture as many as you can, all the while challenging the various gym leaders throughout the land. During battle, you and your opponent both take turns and select from 4 different abilities that each Pokemon possesses. To build up your Pokemon strength, you need to battle more and more, and as you level up, they will not only receive stat increases, but also learn new abilities to use in battle as well. With just over 300 Pokemon available in the game, all with different elemental types that are either effective or useless against your opponent, building the perfect team is half of the fun, and this is where Black and White 2 really shines. Even though it probably doesn't sound like it, there really is a lot of depth to the game and a lot of things to do. If you wanted, you could just go around and catch Pokemon, explore the world, talk to people, battle, and so much more. But one of the more rewarding aspects is the Pokemon World Tournament, and here you get to battle iconic gym leaders, champions, and well-known trainers from past games in a tournament-style format, and provides a serious amount of replayability once you've made your way through it. For Pokemon fans with a DS, it doesn't get much better than Black and White 2, so if you're looking to jump into the franchise's past, make sure to give this one a look. Shin Megami Tensei is one of the longest running RPG franchises, with its roots reaching back to the days of the Super Nintendo, and Strange Journey on the DS is one entry in the series that's often overlooked, especially when compared to others like Nocturne on the PS2, that comes along with all of the weirdness and mechanics the games are known for, as well as one of the best stories. Without going into too much detail, a strange black energy disturbance begins to occur in the South Pole. It appears to be a dimensional disturbance and destroys everything that it comes into contact with, and all of the world's countries unite, pool their best technology together, and send a team of scientists to investigate. You play as one of the crew in this mission, and soon find yourself waking up in a strange world that reflects the Earth. This space is occupied by demons, spirits, and gods, with the player being able to recruit them into their ranks as they try to figure out a way back home. As with most SMT games, battles take center stage, and play out in a turn-based fashion that builds around the mechanic known as Demon Co-op. Basically, if you exploit an enemy's weakness, you'll automatically initiate a co-op attack, which is where your other party members attack the enemy at the same time, generally resulting in massive amounts of damage. Like many of the other entries in the series, fusion is also present in the game that allows you to mix several of the demons you'll find throughout the game together to create entirely new monsters to utilize in battle. The system offers up near endless possibilities, and it's here where Strange Journey truly shines. So for players looking to experience something that feels entirely different, Strange Journey is a great choice for any fan of old-school dungeon crawling RPGs. Magical Starsign follows the adventure of 6 friends as they set out to find their missing teacher in an adventure that takes place amongst the stars, and sees you traveling via a spaceship to several planets which are all represented by different elements. Although the story could be considered simplistic and cheesy, the light-hearted and humorous nature of the narrative really brings life and a sense of camaraderie to this group of friends, which ends up being one of the main draws of the game. When it comes to the gameplay, it's your pretty standard RPG fare, and sees you investigating each of these planets, talking to NPCs, and finding items and weapons to make the journey all the more manageable. Each of the fights are presented in a turn-based fashion, with all of the characters having their own skills and abilities, but that's not all you've got to contend with, as helping to spice up each encounter even more is the row system. This is where a lot of the strategy comes into play, as most common enemies can be defeated by simply throwing out random attacks, but the far tougher bosses require a tactical touch. By placing your powerhouses at the front, you can deal huge amounts of damage, and with your magic users in the back providing support, you're able to tackle nearly anything the game throws at you. But of course, you'll still have to keep in mind that elemental factor, which can flip the tide of a battle in a flash. What helps the system stand out is the way in which you carry out your attacks. They usually see you having to use the stylus to tap your character whilst casting spells. By doing so, you can potentially add more damage to the attack, but the same is also said for when it comes to defending. It's not exactly original, but it's a nice little touch that adds to each fight. Overall, if you're fond of RPGs, Magical Starsign is a game that truly deserves your time. Starting out life on the PlayStation, Suikoden has long been a critically acclaimed series, but not many people know about the entry that found its way to the DS. While the story has no connection to the mainline series, it still manages to maintain the grandness of the originals, and follows the actions of an unnamed hero and his friends defending their village from an impending evil. As you would expect, it soon opens up to a far more involved narrative that sees you traveling the world and meeting many characters along the way who can potentially join you on your journey. For anyone familiar with the earlier games, the gameplay remains largely intact and sees you jumping into a turn-based battle system and utilizing up to 4 characters at a time, with them occupying both a front and back row of the battlefield. There are no time button presses, strange stylus swirls or other gimmicks to clutter up the combat, and it's relatively presented as a conventional RPG. What makes it a bit different is that there's no random encounters whilst traveling from location to location, and instead you traverse the world map through a series of nodes as the days pass as you travel towards your destination. Each town has a menu with different places to visit, and usually a single interior to actually move around in, which honestly feels quite restrictive. But due to the combat more than making up for any shortcomings with this setup, it's nothing that ruins the overall adventure. This is definitely a game to give a try if you enjoy RPGs. Unlike the previous games in the series, it's a mature political drama with engaging characters who must make some difficult decisions. If you anticipated certain recognizable elements of the series and its gameplay, fans of the originals may be startled and disappointed, but you should still be able to enjoy the game on its own merits. Fire Emblem has long been considered one of the best options when it comes to RPGs, and the new mystery of the Emblem on the DS is a great example of this. It follows the usual formula that sees several factions throughout the world at war with each other and an ancient evil that threatens to engulf the entire kingdom. For anyone familiar with the series, the gameplay picks up where the previous game's Shadow Dragon left off, and focuses on huge grid-based battles and character progression that is central to the overall experience. All of the old classes return, such as archers, cavaliers, and swordmasters, but a handful of new ones that have been added into the mix, like summoners and mage knights, that further enhance the overall strategy involved in the game. Of course, battles is still the main highlight of the experience, and everything has remained unchanged in this area. The weapon triangle, for example, is a basic rock, paper, scissors system, and in Fire Emblem every weapon has a strength and a weakness, making it essential to choose who attacks whom and where to place each unit. Swords beat axes, axes beat lances, and lances beat swords, and the same applies for the different types of magic, and as a result you can't simply breeze your way through these encounters, and instead have to assess each situation as it presents itself and counteract with a sound strategy. If you're a Fire Emblem fan, you've no doubt already played this one, but for those of you who are fond of the genre and never got around to it back in the day, it's still by far one of the best of its kind that you'll find on the handheld. Ever since the first entry on the Game Boy Advance, the Golden Sun games have become one of my favourite series of RPGs, and Dark Dawn on the DS carries on the story and picks up 30 years later, with you taking on the role of Matthew, the son of Isaac from the previous games, as you and your friends set out to repair a glider only to stumble into a quest after a strange vortex begins to drain the land of its elemental energy. Much like the originals, there's a huge emphasis on exploring, puzzle solving, and of course the combat, which provides a fast-paced and strategic system to get stuck into. At the center of each fight lies the synergy mechanic, which allows characters who are aligned with specific elements to perform spells and abilities fueled by synergy points, this game's version of MP. The system goes even deeper though, and by equipping cute collectible creatures known as Jinn, you're able to tweak your character's synergy abilities even further, letting you switch out their skills in the middle of a fight. Apart from playing a major role in combat, synergy also has its use within the world, where your different characters can use it to shift boulders, ignite flames, or grow vines to reach different areas that turn each of the game's dungeons into head-scratching puzzles. If there was one negative aspect I could throw at the game though, it would be that the difficulty is noticeably easier than the previous adventures, with generous healing items and forgiving bosses that never really test you that hard. It'll likely be a bit of a disappointment, especially for veterans, but with the amount of variety within the gameplay, it's more than made up for. So whether you're a fan of the originals or simply just looking for an RPG to jump into, Golden Sun Dark Dawn is a true must-have for any DS owner. Atlas had become synonymous with the term hidden gem, and it doesn't get any more hidden than Radiant Historia. It's one of those games that deserves far more praise than what it received, and it's easily one of the most overlooked RPGs, with a story that truly stands out. Several hundred years prior to the events of the game, a technologically advanced empire ruled most of the kingdom. Now the entire planet is turning into one large desert thanks to their abuse of the resources it once provided. The player must set out on a journey to hopefully reverse the cruel fate that has befallen the land, and you'll soon find yourself caught up in a tale of epic proportions. When it comes to gameplay, Radiant Historia takes advantage of a turn-based battle system that provides an immense amount of depth and mechanics which all come together to create one of the most engaging RPGs in recent memory. In order to set itself apart from other turn-based systems, it uses a 3x3 grid for the enemy's placement, and depending on its size, each enemy can fill anywhere from one spot to the entire grid, and their damage significantly fluctuates depending on where they are. Managing your own turns and attempting to score combo attacks are the main strategies for defeating these monsters. There's the standard RPG mix of attacks from basic melee, magic, healing, and status effects, but the big twist is being able to move enemies around on the field and take advantage of their position in order to score more amounts of damage. It's such an awesome system, and once you've got your head around the various intricacies that make it up, it plays out in a buttery smooth way. It's easy to recommend Radiant Historia if you're a lover of old school RPGs. It's charming, has a solid plot, and the combat system is truly unique, making it one of the best of its kind on the system. Well, that does it for another video. Keep an eye out for the next part, as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos. You can follow me on all of the socials, which are linked below, to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters: Rhino, Skilljim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, Fake, and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining the Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to check the video out. I'll catch you next time.